Welcome to Fantasy Football. That came in so quick. We need to get a little bit of a softer intro into the show.
Get the music like fade and
I just want at the end for it just to be like, ah!
Oh man, I almost missed that intro. Well, welcome to Fantasy Football Ruins My Life. Just like that intro almost ruined yours.
My countdown video ruined your diction.
Oh man, I'm Josh Christensen. This is Jay Christensen. This is Andrew Christensen. No relation. Have you ever started Antonio Brown only to have him quit his team mid-game, take his shirt off, and run through the end zone? Then fantasy football may have ruined your life. Just doing the jumping jack through it.
You deserved it.
Yes, you do. That's an allusion to something we'll get to a little bit later, because on today's episode, we are talking about mistakes. Big mistakes. Huge.
Embarrassing mistakes.
Embarrassing fantasy football mistakes. All the mistakes that we've made, and some special guest mistakes, which you'll hear from, including from some of your favorite fantasy analysts, because we're all human and we've all done terrible things in the name of trying to win at fantasy football that have just not panned out. And we'll hear about those.
One might say it's a rite of passage in fantasy football, like your first huge mistake.
And also that passage never ends, because you're going to keep making bad, terrible mistakes over and over and over again.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's like comedians bombing. Like most will tell you that you never get quite past it. They'll keep
it's perfect analogy. You know, we're workshopping this thing. I'm making bad trades till I make that perfect trade, and then I reap the rewards of that trade. But I gotta bomb some first. I gotta do some bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's exactly how it goes. I was gonna make a bad joke that wouldn't have landed, but
workshop it. Come on.
I'll take it to the cellar later, and we'll work it out. Well, before we get into some news for the week, and before our mistakes, what are we all drinking tonight, Jay?
I got Maker's Mark on the rocks here.
Okay, Andrew.
Feeling from Andrew's classic drink there.
Who do you think you are?
I'm Andrew when he drinks on this show.
What? What did you say?
Oh!
Look at me. I'm Jay. I got a beer.
I got an IPA.
Oh, I'm Jay. I drink beer.
Oh, I'm Jay.
That's a really good one. That's exactly what he sounds like.
I've got a drink with hops. That's Jay doing Mickey Mouse, drinking a beer. This is
good.
Night Shift Brewing. It's a night light lager. Going easy drinking.
We got to ease back in, you know.
Easy drinking, yes.
You know, maybe like under 5 ABV, you know, kind of.
I'm probably going to drink like, I think I got a few more sips in this. I'll throw out the other 3/4 of it. Just kind of call it.
It's just for
Don't want to get crazy. Yeah. 4 ounces of beer tonight.
That's nice. That's good. What am I drinking, you ask?
I didn't ask.
It's a truly hard seltzer, a strawberry iced tea. It's delicious, and 100. Is this 110 calories? No,
yes,
100
read us
calories.
the nutritional facts.
It's 100 calories.
And carbs are in that.
130 milligrams of sodium.
20 milligrams of sodium.
Oh, sodium. That's good.
2 grams of total carbohydrates. That's pretty good.
Healthy.
4 milligrams of calcium. That's, you know,
protein in there.
It's 12 grams of protein. It's a bone broth Cabernet. It's delicious.
No, I'm pretty sure it eliminates protein. It's that's a negative on the
really
10 grams of protein.
It sucks the marrow from your bones. That's what it does. Truly. Back to you, Jerry. Still, every time I have to say it. Should we talk about some news? It's not a lot of news, but there are 2 kind of fun pieces of news. And I think I'll start with this one's new. It's new as of today. So the Cardinals apparently have yet to make a contract offer to Kyler Murray, and Kyler's agent has pulled their opening offer, which has restarted all of the trade rumors. And there's reports that says, and this is probably the more pertinent thing rather than trading, is he's not going to play without a new contract by reports. That's what they're saying, that he doesn't intend to play the season until he gets a new contract. So the holdout watch begins with Kyler Murray. Reactions to this, Andrew? I don't know really what to make of it for fantasy, but like initial reactions off of this.
We just heard about it like a couple minutes before going on, but I was saying that I knew there was a little bit of tension because what was it, like a month ago there was the sort of incident with him pulling all the following of some of the team stuff, so you knew there was like something going on, some tensions, but I don't remember much arising from that. But it sort of makes sense now, hearing about this, that there was maybe a little bit more fire where we saw smoke back with that initial incident. So I'm not sure what's going to happen out of that, or if this is just playing hardball, but I just don't know the benefit of holding out like that. That seems like it hasn't really gone in the favor of so many players, including one of the players we'll talk about a little later in mistakes. It's a sketchy area to go into, so I sort of hope for fantasy football value that he just continues to play there and that they work things out. But I don't know what you guys are thinking, if there's more to it than I think there is.
I got a Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins stack. I don't want to screw that up. You know?
Don't disturb that.
I don't need
Baker
Mayfield. Baker Mayfield to DeAndre Hopkins. Are we headed like that way?
Maybe.
I don't no.
I would have a year ago, if you asked me this, I'd be like, nothing. He's going to stay on the team. But now you're a little not snake bitten, but like now you've seen it. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, like where you're like, yeah, that guy seems like they're staying on the team. Suddenly the contract situation goes south and they're traded. So
yeah,
sometimes it seems like
I don't know. I feel like it can happen now. Russell Wilson gets it's just like
anything's possible.
I don't know. It's possible if the right offer comes
in. Do you feel like sometimes the more smoke you see, the less likely it is, and then sometimes when the real things happen, it just comes out of nowhere?
I mean, he'll happen so fast. Here, I mean, I would assume like they know what they have to pay him. I'm not sure what he's asking for, but like you saw Derek Carr. He got an extension. You've seen some of the other money that's been thrown around to some of these quarterbacks, the Mahomes contract. Russell Wilson's, you've got a lot of guys getting paid. So it's like he commands that. I don't know if they're just gun shy just because of how banged up he's gotten in some of the last couple of years. I'm not sure what their hang up is, because you know what the market is for quarterbacks. You took a quarterback, you had him 1 overall, it's like, what you're getting into. So I'm just not sure
I don't
exactly
understand
what the disconnect is there, but
I don't understand why you don't, because you don't have leverage. You just got to pay the guy. You know what I mean? Because like what happens? Then you no longer have Kyler Murray, and then what do you have?
Yeah,
Nothing.
What's your solution unless you're gonna tank and you're just gonna draft another guy high, and they're gonna be in the same scenario that you're gonna have to pay eventually. So
it's true.
And I mean, you mentioned Baker, and I'm like, do they really want to dip back into that 2018 class of QBs? You already had your guy. His name was Josh Rosen. So obviously you didn't think much of that 2018
they drafted 2 first-round draft picks in a row. Yeah, it's like once you find one that's gotten you to the playoffs, at least you have to pay them. That's how it works.
Yeah. You just got to do it. I don't know. It makes no sense. Well, I mean, if I had to guess, they're probably going to pay him. I think this is much ado about nothing. Like sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. Other times when there's smoke, it's just because your pizza rolls have spilled out onto the bottom of your oven. It's all smoky.
That's right.
That's my experience, at least, with smoke. I don't know. This is stupid. Although I do just want it, because I'm an agent of chaos. I do want to see him traded. I just want to see something happen. That'd be great. Where's he get traded to? Why would that be? It'd be Carolina, probably, which is one of the 2 teams that doesn't want Baker Mayfield right now, which brings us to our other bit of news, we'll say in the quote, which is Baker Mayfield went on the YNK podcast and said he felt disrespected, which by the whole like being told one thing and then they went out and traded for Deshaun Watson and all of that. And he floated that his most likely destination is at this point is Seattle. And my question is, Why would Seattle ruin the good thing they have with Drew Lock, Jay?
They brought him there for a reason.
They're on a roll with Drew Lock. I mean, yeah, he hasn't lost a game for him yet. So I mean, why mess that up?
Yeah,
I mean,
undefeated Seattle Seahawks
team
quarterback.
chemistry. He's pumped to be there. I mean, like, give Drew Lock the ball. Let him cook. I mean,
Yes.
You fired the last cook. Drew Lock's ready to cook.
What's different? It can't just be cook. We have to have it something. Let Drew Lock sous vide, which is boiling things in a bag.
Sure.
Anyways,
I have no idea. Yeah. But like, I mean, is it weird for a player to just announce that their likely destination is somewhere? I feel like that's a little strange.
It seems like it's not so much as like I'm probably gonna end up there.
Probably going to the Seahawks. It's like Seattle's like, oh, really?
Which means is like his agent's gone to them. Is just like, listen, we will pay you for you to give a 6th-round pick.
We got
get
Home
our guy
Depot
there.
money here. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
you want Alice Cooper? We'll do some commercials for you with Alice Cooper. He'll go to Seattle.
We know Cooper. He's got him on speed dial. You ready?
Well, they at least had
We
to
can
have
do commercials with, I don't know, Howard Schultz, Starbucks or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, you hope they at least touched base with Seattle, because how embarrassing would it be to float that out there? Be like, I'd love to go to Seattle. And Seattle's like, we don't know anything about this, nor endorse Baker Mayfield's take on this. We have not talked with him or his people. This is not based on any rumoring. We are dismissing all of these
Drew Lock is our quarterback.
We
We'll just
stand
say this
by Drew
unequivocally.
Lock.
QB1 is Drew Lock. Now, if something should change and Baker wants to compete for a backup job, maybe.
Yeah, we'll
Maybe
bring him
that'll
in.
work
We'll
out.
bring Gino back, and they can battle it out.
They did bring Gino back.
Is he back?
1 year, $7 million. They're paying him like
All right.
the
Well,
best
yeah, they don't. They're
backup
fine.
in the league.
They're totally fine.
But I do like the idea of them not even doing like a real quarterback battle between the two. They just do commercials. Like, who's better in the latest Snickers commercial? Look, Drew Lock has good acting chops. He's got great comedic timing. We're just gonna say, like, it's not a gimme, Baker. You're gonna have to win this job.
And this week in our QB battle, it's the Snatch Game. Stupid. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Baker also said, like, he was like, if you asked me like a month ago, I probably would have said Indianapolis was the most likely destination, which you did hear a little bit. People were talking about that, but like, I don't know. Is Matt Ryan the better option? I kind of think it is if you're trying to win now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, obviously age is like a factor in Baker's things, but like, you know, Matt Ryan's won an MVP and been to a Super Bowl. Like, he's not that quarterback anymore, but he's, I don't know. What has Baker Mayfield done for you? Indianapolis is trying to win something.
Right. I think you're going to go with Matt Ryan. They got to think this year. I don't think they're thinking 2-3 years from now.
No.
But I mean, Seattle does feel more in that rebuild range, and they are more of a like run heavy team. So in a world, you could imagine that being like maybe an ideal fit for someone like him, but it's all depends on whether they want to take a retread guy like who's trying to find second life, or whether they'd rather try and draft their next quarterback. I'm not sure what they have for, you know, draft capital, like overall, whether it's like, oh, do they seem likely to take a quarterback, or are they, you know, better off kind of trying to trade for more depth and picks? Because I don't know what the whole field of their draft looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. Should we get to mistakes?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's dive in. Who wants to start with their mistake? Well, before we got to make fun of ourselves before we get to other people.
Yeah. I'll kick it off.
Yeah, okay. Here
I already sort of alluded. In 2019, traded George Kittle for Le'Veon Bell. This was Le'Veon Bell when he was on the Jets, not on Pittsburgh. This was after. Again, he is the person who in 2018, he had a holdout after a very good season. 2017, over 1,200 yards, double-digit touchdowns, 350 or so touches on the year. So, you know, when he was on the Jets, he was getting volume. he wasn't making much of that. His efficiency was very low that year. I think 3 yards per carry, and didn't even eclipse 1,000 yards. It did not turn out well, and we all know where Le'Veon Bell's at now. So this trade looks terrible in retrospect, but I think I told myself that this was a lesser, a league that was lower stakes. It's this is a playground league. I'll make this trade. And nothing for running back, so I'm I'll try bringing him in because Saquon's injured on that team. But I feel like sometimes when you make moves out of desperation like that, trying to move for team need, you get a little blinded to the bigger picture. And I don't think my running back core it still hasn't recovered in that league. I think there were other purchasing Melvin Gordon and other stopgap running backs. It just doesn't work.
Was it a tight end premium league?
No.
Oh, thank God. Okay, so that makes it a little better. It's still not great. It's still not good at all.
No, it gets worse with time.
It's just that position desperation is kind of the key there with where you make mistakes, and that's the biggest time to make mistakes is you're desperate. You're either when you're desperate or you're drunk. Don't trade when you're desperate or you've had too much to drink. That's the times to not do a trade because
drunk,
you're just
desperate or bored.
Or bored, yeah. Because you're just it's just not gonna work out. Cause you're just yes, that works. Or that's a running back. He was good.
Yeah,
at some point.
look at his
Jamal
career
Charles
as a whole.
Still playing. I'll trade for Jamal Charles. Been out of the league for 5 years. Nah, he's still good. I got him.
Yeah,
that's when you don't trade.
Yeah, don't do that. Just put the computer away, the phone away, and just enjoy the drink or the desperation.
Yes,
enjoy
in that sweet desperation.
Jay, what was your biggest mistake?
My biggest mistake was back in 2018. I've made a lot of mistakes. I mean, that's the key here. And I think that's the key to this segment is, it's admitting in a safe space your mistakes and then learning from them, and growing as a person.
No judgments here.
No
or
judgments
all
here.
Judgments. I don't know. One of those.
All team
One that stands out is the Tyreek Hill trade I made in 2018. This was to you, Josh, where I traded Tyreek Hill.
Sorry,
and apparently a first and a second.
Yes.
I didn't remember. This is when AJ Green was still good, although he declined at this point. It wasn't really bad the rest of this year, but it was for AJ Green. I might have gotten a third back too, but doesn't really matter. And Tyreek Hill turned into wide receiver 1 for stretches, and AJ Green basically continued to decline and never really be good. I think I still have him on my team, which is funny. I did win the title that year though, so that helped. But
yeah, that's fair.
That trade was a little haunting because Tyreek Hill just got better and better and better as time went on, and yeah, it just one of those ones where you're I'm going to get the sure thing in this trade. Because AJ Green, established star. Tyreek Hill at that point was he had flashed, but it wasn't we still had doubts. It was how long is this Tyreek Hill thing going to last?
Yeah.
It lasted years. How many? 4 or 5 years we're on. So
you know what I just remembered that I had honestly forgotten about? Tyreek Hill's on the Dolphins now. I completely forgot that happened.
You forgot that? Yes. Yeah, that happened.
We just talked. So much happened, and we just talked about this last week. But I completely forgot between last week and this week that had happened. And I was just Kansas City's Tyreek Hill. Wait a second. That's not right anymore.
No,
I feel like there's just been so many moves that some of them just aren't sinking in. You're just okay,
that's fine.
You have to see it 3 times before it sinks in oh, this is real.
Yeah, you're gonna be watching a Raiders game and be like, "Wow, Brian Edwards really having a breakout season."
Right.
That's right. That's not Brian Edwards.
That's Davante Adams.
All right, let's go to my mistake. This one's bad. There's no lesson to be learned here besides pay attention. and don't do stupid things.
Oh, for sure.
I traded a late first for Doug Baldwin and a mid second 2 weeks before he retired.
That was off season of what, 2019 or when did he retire? Like probably.
Oh yeah, off season of 2019, I think it was. Yeah, I don't know. I have no explanation for this. Like, it was like an immediate accept, and I was like, huh, that's weird. And then I was like, and I Googled Doug Baldwin, and it was like Doug Baldwin thinking about retiring. And I was like, oh no. I made the offer too. That's the thing. Then just like immediately blew up in my face.
An instant accept.
I traded back. It basically ended up being like a 7-spot trade back for nothing. For absolutely nothing. I had to drop him off my roster almost immediately.
You're like, so I traded a first for a second.
I did. I traded a first for a second. I don't know what.
It begs the question: is Doug Baldwin worth that? Anyways, that's also valid. I think. Would he have been at the end of his career?
Jay.
Clearly.
Let's take this one piece at a time. We don't need to get into that whole question.
Was it a mistake even if he didn't retire?
Yeah, I want to break that.
It's almost better that he did retire.
That's only circumstantial.
Like, I was so unlucky. He retired. He was still in his prime. It's weird.
Yeah.
Honestly, he could have been a roster clogger if he didn't retire.
Probably. Yeah,
And
that was.
Some might say that's worse.
That was awful. I still, to this day, no idea what I was thinking doing that trade. Zero idea, like, where the rationale was. Like,
well, I mean, you're looking for that final piece to the puzzle, and
yeah, and it was Doug Baldwin.
Doug Baldwin, 31, whatever. I don't forget what he was, how old he was at that point, but
I
probably
I don't know.
31. I don't know.
Was there a player? Is this a fever dream, or was there also a Seattle Seahawk named Jonathan Baldwin?
Maybe.
I thought there was a running back, Jonathan Baldwin. I don't know if he was a Seahawk, but I feel
somebody
like
put this in the chat.
This is important. We need to know
who is Jonathan Baldwin, and was he on the Seahawks as a wide receiver? I need to know.
Yeah,
Justin Baldwin, something with a J.
James Baldwin. No,
that's a very different person.
Yeah,
there was a Jonathan Baldwin. Wide receiver and he didn't play for those teams. He played for Kansas City, and this is way back in like 20. This is like 2012 though, so I don't know. 2013.
Yeah, this is probably what I mean.
2011, 2012 for Kansas City. Jonathan Baldwin.
That's it. Was he a first round pick? That's what I need to know.
Does this site have where he was picked? Yeah, he was 26th overall.
Yeah, got it. I'm not crazy. It's not.
What a career. Jeez. He played 2 years, then went to San Francisco. That was it. Man.
Wait, I think he was drafted the same year as Julio Jones and AJ Green, because I think I remember this, because I think there's a quote from Bill Belichick that's like, why would you draft Julio Jones at 4 when you can draft Jonathan Baldwin at 26?
I mean, renowned wide receiving picker, Bill Belichick.
Can somebody fact check that for me? I need to know that.
I mean,
put it in the chat. I need to know if that's a real quote.
Yeah, I love how many times you could probably use that as like a Belichick-ism. It's like, why take Saquon Barkley at 2 when you can take Sony Michel at 28?
But you know why this is worthwhile is because you hear that same exact logic in the fantasy community all the time for startups, for trades. Like, why would you want this person when you can trade them for this person plus? And I'm like, because they're good and this other person is probably worse and the plus is garbage. I don't need, like, I don't know. I feel like people need to stop telling me that second round picks are like make the world go around and it's worth it to trade a great player for a decent player and a second round pick. I don't want to do that.
Well, that's where one of our runner-up mistakes came from. I was thinking about that. I had the pick in 2020 that I was going to use for CeeDee Lamb. He was on the block and traded back for what ended up being Henry Ruggs in a second. And we can see how disastrous that is. Luckily, the second ended up getting Antonio Gibson, so not a complete loss, and doesn't fit this, but that was kind of damage control at that. Ultimately, I'd rather have CeeDee Lamb, and that's just another case where it's I could just take CeeDee Lamb. He's the guy who felt like the sure thing receiver in that class. I mean, it turns out it was Justin Jefferson, but CeeDee Lamb's the next guy up. So, and still great. And then this year we're looking at him without Amari next. So maybe clearing some things up. He might be coming into his own. He's right in his prime.
Well, when they
he's doing better than Henry Ruggs. That's the point.
Wow. Yeah. No. That's Henry Ruggs. That's sad. It's a sad situation.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're not here to talk about sad things. We're here to talk about now other people's huge mistakes. And now that we've talked about our own, that we can just really tear into these fucking jamokes.
Now to not stop pulling punches.
Let's go to the first one, though, because I think this one may be the worst one in the draft. In the ones that we did. This is a fun one. This is from our friend of the pod.
Draft season, so.
Yeah, it's rookie draft season. This is from friend of the pod, Tommy.
This comment are chilling.
Anyways, I'm gonna actually say this now from our friend of the pod, Tommy Tipple. You can the Fantasy Walkabout. He's got a bunch of media out there. You should follow Tommy.
Full Tilt Dynasty podcast.
Full Tilt Dynasty podcast as well. So this is in 2020 rookie draft. He traded back from the 102 to the 108 and 111 and drafted Keyshawn Vaughn and Jalen Reagor. So that's probably Jonathan Taylor that he gave up.
Well, depending on if CEH had gone 101, that could have been Taylor at 2. Now, if it was CEH,
could have been Swift. Could have been.
You could take Swift or Dobbins there. If you would have taken CEH
or CeeDee Lamb, or if it's super flex.
If you took CEH at 102, and if you're comparing CEH or Keyshawn Vaughn or Reagor, you still lost CEH.
It's a generous take.
Oh God, yeah, this one's.
The fun thing was just the hype in Keyshawn Vaughn that year. We saw him go. Where we see him go?
Landing spot.
We saw him 104.
We saw him go at the 104
wild
in a super flex league, wasn't it?
Yeah. A super flex league that I subsequently cut Justin Herbert at the 203.
That is
I was choosing between Herbert and Jefferson.
And that was one of my other mistakes. I took Tua just before Herbert and Jefferson. So that hurt. But but at the time it made sense because Tua was hyped more than Herbert. Whatever, it is what it is. But
we live.
But this is I'm assuming his league was non-super flex because that makes more sense here. But man, Reagor and Keyshawn Vaughn were two hype guys that year, so those are some. You got to beware of those trap guys. You never know who they are for sure. But rookie draft season now, it's a similar situation where you got to be careful. In this draft, just compare it to this year. If you go from 2 to 8, 11, you're really risking some stuff, particularly in non-super flex. Don't do that this year. I would covet the top 6, and then if you're dropping back, you need to get some serious heat. To give up a top pick because I think there's some sure things up front, and then there's depth in this class, but it's gonna be dicey who hits. So you could end up with the Keyshawn Vaughn or a Reagor. Somewhere in there,
You got to imagine top 5 picks, you're probably hopefully better than 50-50 chance of them hitting. After that, particularly this year, I think you just got to assume it's a 40% chance of any of the guys you get hitting. Just because no matter what you think about a guy from college, all of these guys have to make the leap from college to the NFL, and that just doesn't work out all the time. So it's just like, you know, like last year, you feel like sometimes it just helps just like listen to the smart actual football people and what NFL teams think, and even that's not always going to get you right, but like just don't, like sometimes these hype like the fantasy like Twitter driven hype trains, not to get on like a pedestal about like fantasy Twitter, and kind of some of like the pitfalls of it, but like the fantasy Twitter hype trains are wild because they seem to just like materialize out of nowhere necessarily in like this weird way, and I'm like, I'm never sure exactly what it's based on. Like, and sometimes it's less weird than others. Like, obviously, like, we've talked about Bryan Edwards before on the show. That was a weird one that was like a fantasy hype train that like all of a sudden it's like everyone's on Bryan Edwards, and then like he was a 3rd round pick, and all of like the NFL people or like the people who were actually plugged into that were just like, yeah, this is a nice day 2 receiver. And then there's people that were just like, Bryan Edwards is going to be the next big thing. He's the next alpha wide receiver 1 right there. It's like, where did this come from? Where does this actually come from? That's what I would beware of. Like, beware the fantasy Twitter where you can't find like its roots in actual like football analysis and scouting.
Well, again, think about how like, not to keep pushing the Henry Ruggs thing, but this was a hype train for Bryan Edwards where Henry Ruggs was the number 1 the round 1 drafted receiver.
First guy off the board. First wide receiver.
Yeah, he was the first wide receiver off the board, in the guy they invested way more draft capital into. Like, it sort of made sense. It's like, I get that you're profiling like the size and that sort of athletic profile, but again, that's not what the Raiders were prioritizing in the draft. So what, like, I don't know what logic leads you to being like, this guy, like the second best rookie on this team, he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not even the fact of like, it's one thing to be like, oh, he's an interesting day 2 guy. Like, I like his size. I like some of his tape. He was productive at South Carolina. Like, I like this guy. I think he's worth a flyer. That's different than, man, I don't know. I would be taking him over T. Higgins. Or like, which was what people were doing. Some people were doing that. Which was
T. Higgins was that bar for like, where people were pushing like players over the top. Be like, I think I'd put them in that like top group. You know, it goes Lamb, Judy, like Rager, and then Edwards. Like you'd have these
Rager, Edwards
rankings.
Drop in tier Jefferson Higgins.
Wait, let me slot Denzel Mims and Pittman over them.
I don't know. I feel like people just overthink some of these rookie things so much. Of like at sometimes you're just at some points you're just guessing at some of these like day 2 or day 3 guys who are going to hit, and maybe you're going to be right every once in a while, but it's probably more coincidence than anything if you're really diverting from like what NFL teams actually think going into the draft. Do you know what I mean? Like, the reality is like 1st round picks generally hit like 50% of the time, and 2nd round picks hit a little less than that in the NFL, and 3rd round picks hit a little less than that in the NFL. And it just goes down like that. And that's what you call a learning curve. Yeah. And it's just like your method for selecting talent, particularly outside of like those top tier, like can't miss prospects that everybody knows every year. It's probably at best as good as draft capital is, and probably a little bit worse. Cause it's just, what I mean, has fantasy Twitter figured out player analysis before the NFL scouting community writ large has? No, of course they haven't. Like, get out of here.
Yeah. So I'm almost going to throw out even thinking with this.
It's like, but I do Devy, so I know more than the NFL.
Yes, I've been looking at these players longer. Yeah. I'm almost going to throw out a scenario for this that I feel like in a rookie draft, some of the value on trading back, I think because there's more severe drops, and I think you have more differently aligned tiers in a smaller sample size, I feel like you get way more value trading back in like a startup in doing stuff because you have a much larger breadth of player. And I'm just kind of thinking that out loud right now. But like, what do you guys think of that? Like, do you think it's more preferable trading back in a startup and trading up in a rookie draft? Because of the disparity in player pools.
Because you have more players, I guess it rounds out because you get stuck in these kind of like mires of like players really drop off, and maybe you load it, maybe you go running back the first 2 rounds, and the third round there's like those last couple like good running backs, but you've got your 2, and you're like, I really need wide receiver, and maybe I'll just capitalize on value here because like the wide receiver pool is not as tapped and I don't really need another running back. Like, yeah, I can see that because like you don't really draft in startups just according to like your pure integrated values. You draft by need from pick to pick with some, you know what I mean? It's just, it's almost
like an evolving need because it's like your team.
Yeah, exactly. You're constructing a roster. You're not just drafting for value. And I don't care what anyone tells you. The people who are just like draft for value. Nobody does that. Nobody really does.
Well, again, value's subjective too. So
yeah, you're also like, you also literally can't completely do that because you have to fill roster criteria to begin with. So it's just like particularly strict in like redrafts. So it's just like anyone who's just like just draft for value. It's like you literally can't do that at the very like in the most absolute form, and beyond that, you're not doing that. You're not. So yeah, I think it's better. Or it's more fruitful to trade back in a startup, I would say, than in a rookie draft, just because the value is usually better.
No, yeah, my answer is both. My answer is both works.
It
depends what it's situational. It depends what pocket of the draft you're in. You're getting to those murky spots. Like just think last year when you got to like. I guess beyond Amon-Ra now, but like you just get into this murky territory. You know, last year was probably more back end second. If you can move back there when you're in this like weird flat tier of players, that's where you can get value because like you don't even know who to take. You're in the spot and you don't even know what to do. Then that's a good spot to trade back because like you're letting other people make the decision for you. Kind of, you're like, I like all these players the same. So you're trying to identify your own flat tiers where like you can move back. And it's the same thing in the startup. Like maybe you've already set up a position and you're in a tier of receivers that you're like, I like these guys are all close, these 8 guys.
Yeah, but you'd agree that it's a little more headroom.
So it's situational. Like, yeah, there's more players there, but like in the rookie, like it works, but it works both ways too, because like you could identify a need or a player or a strategy that you want to do in a strategy in a startup where you're maybe star scrubs that you're going to force. So I'm going to trade up and I'm going to get 2 quarterbacks early that are studs in a super flex. But yeah, there's more things you could do in a startup just because the player pool's bigger and the amount of rounds are bigger that, you know, you can do that. Rookie draft, it's the same thing. It's just smaller window. Like, oh, this draft has Breece Hall, who is the only one I trust, and Malik Willis, and I don't know, you know, Garrett Wilson, say, for example. So I want to get in the top 3. So that's you're identifying that's my window for moving up, and then when that's gone, you're like, well, whatever, I'll just take my picks or I'll move back, you know. So it's situational depending on you know, the rookie draft you're in and the picks that you have.
Let's move to the next one, and I don't even know really what to say to this one. This one's from Shane Barrett of the Fantasy Football Collective, and you can hear him on Collective Knowledge and writing all over the place. Took Ridley in a startup 1 week prior to his suspension. I don't know what else to say besides that just sucks. It's just bad timing.
It feels like the same scenario as the Doug Baldwin thing, and then I think I'd also.
Well, okay, so that's not fair to Shane.
Doug Baldwin's worse.
Doug Baldwin's way worse.
No, but
Calvin Ridley
I feel like there's many facets, and I think I said to you off, like probably in the Twitter, one of the Twitter threads or group chats that we were talking about it, that like it's almost like a subject unto itself. Those just bad, like whether a player retires, like Andrew Luck. Like how many people drafted Andrew Luck before he retired? It was a redraft league like that I did, but like I was one of those people. I think that was a year when I drafted Andrew Luck and Ben Roethlisberger, and that was a year where I think Ben was out for the season, like week 1, so it was terrible. But yeah, no, these are just one of those mistakes where you're like, I could only work with the knowledge I had at the time, and you just never know what's going to happen, like in real world, or like just pending suspensions on stuff that we're not privy to.
Nope, no idea. It's really nothing else to say. That's just shit.
All right, moving on.
We had the other Ridley one. Do you want to read that one off?
Oh yeah, let's do the other Ridley one.
At MCINQB3, which is Blake on Twitter.
Yes,
I'll read it. I'm already talking. This he traded essentially. This was prior, so we had the suspension which happened in this offseason, but prior to that, we obviously had the Calvin Ridley with the off the field issues, mental health, all that. But right before that happened, this player traded Javonte Williams and others for Calvin Ridley, and then basically he dropped out a week or two later. So that's another rough one where it's just you're buying the player, and I think at that point Ridley was struggling a little bit on the field, but like you're buying that stud Calvin Ridley receiver, and then it's just bad luck hits where the player steps away for a while. So a little different than the suspension in a way, but like still just like there's nothing you could do there. You're trying to make a good play to get the proven commodity, and it just doesn't work out.
That's probably one of those cases where you're like, I'm gonna do like a nice little overpay to get the guy that I feel like you said. I think there was just in general Atlanta just hadn't found its footing, and things just
the only thing there is maybe your evaluation of Javonte there might have been the mistake of just like maybe should I trade that guy for.
That's the guy you went to big on an offer.
I'm just wondering what others it is.
We don't know.
I want to know too.
Others. Now I'm just like, this seems a little ambiguous. I feel like you're hiding something else.
I
traded Javonte and
Adams.
And Devontae Adams. That's terrible. Oh god. And
probably Amon-Ra St. Brown, probably.
Yeah, something like that. Actually, that could have been a very real thing.
Very.
That'd be a late omission because you're just like, that would make it, but that makes it look even worse now, like in retrospect.
But you have to remember, looking back, how many times have we seen trades like despite bad luck like this, go from good to bad to good again to awful.
Sometimes it's a roller coaster.
It's a roller coaster of like they lost that trade, and it's all of a sudden maybe they won that trade, and then
life is a highway, and I'm gonna ride it all night long. Let's move on to the next one.
Who sang that?
And it's been covered a billion times.
That Rascal Flatts.
Well, they did a cover of it.
I think they did the original.
No, they didn't. This is an old song. Get out of here.
I think it was originally written for the SNL sketch Rocket Dog.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I am right. Yeah.
This next one comes from @Parry_FF Jake Parry. Traded Kamara for Josh Jacobs week 1 of the 2020 season. And this is notably to remind you all who may have forgotten, Kamara was really good that year, including scoring 6 touchdowns in the final.
No dips.
In the final. No dips. No notes.
No, I think again, we talked about hype trains that go on, but then sometimes there's like hate trains that go on for some of these players. And I feel like Kamara is someone who there's been sort of intermittent, like, is it time to sell on Kamara just because of how things have fallen off with the Saints? Yeah. They're just like, yeah, well, Drew Brees leaving like the team, like that's going to make, like, he's not going to do as well. Because remember how he fell off when Teddy Bridgewater was filling in when Drew Brees got injured in 2019. And then I think it's just age that's like coming at like where it's like, well, he's getting older along with the rest of the 2017 running back. And it's just, I feel like there's a lot that went around for Kamara at the time and even still.
So Dad Says Life is a Highway is by Sammy Hagar. I still think it's Rascal Flatts to the original.
Some of the cars. Some of the cars.
Wait, so the Rascal Flatts also created Cabo Wabo Tequila.
the original "Life Is a Highway" was sang by Tom Cochrane. That's who sang that.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's what Wikipedia says. Anyways, back to what we were saying.
Music.
We're gonna stick with that.
I do want to say there is a side note on this where I think we had a startup previous that season where like it was Josh Jacobs coming off a very good rookie year. I think everyone liked him at that point. We were in a startup that summer before that 2020 season where he went 6th overall. Josh Jacobs, that is, over Alvin Kamara.
Actually, yeah, that was true.
One of our first, like, I feel like now it's really, really like popular. Of like, it's just the young running back. Like, immediately sell the running back that's 3 years in for the one that's 1 year in.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
That was like the original, like it's like the same play. It's like now that you get your running back 3 years in, trade him for the first year guy, and it can be a mistake because sometimes it's like, well, no, the third year guy is going to have 3 more great years.
Except you want to get value on that if you're going to do that.
Well, that too, and there could have been more to that deal, but it's just like maybe you shouldn't. Like if you're trying to win ships, like just have Kamara, like just have the guy who's better. I mean, obviously there are situations where the young guy's great, like Jonathan Taylor.
Sure, yeah.
But like, it's a little. Sometimes it's not.
If you're rebuilding, you want to keep cycling out running backs, but like otherwise, like again, I still think like you're probably better off trying to get some value on the, and then like you're saying, sometimes it's just a mistake because you're maybe not doing the best apples to apples comparison. You're just going younger, not necessarily better.
Well, I think there's this conventional wisdom that like guys just like all running backs, doesn't matter who it is, just don't. It was like, what was the old thing? It was just like second contract running backs. You got to get rid of them. And like to an extent, I understand if you're rebuilding, like it is a highly injured position. So the more like, but it's not all like, I don't know why this became conventional wisdom because there's like a lot of examples of like, especially like the top echelon running backs, like having long careers. Like I was recently doing like a deep dive back into like LaDainian Tomlinson, who like, I mean, I notably remember just being like one of the first, like he was obviously like in his heyday when I was like,
he was
like
the
a kid and a teen and stuff. And like, he was amazing to watch. He was relevant for 10 seasons and missed like 3 games over.
Yeah. You tweeted that and I was like, I can't believe he was that.
He was a top two PPR wide running back for 6 straight seasons.
That's insane.
And was top 6 2 others. He was like 6 and 5 2 other seasons.
Yeah, he's like the GOAT running back of modern fantasy. Like just
rarely missed a game.
Insane.
8 straight seasons of being just like a lock it in top tier running back, and also had another decent like season like later in his career where he was still usable. He was like running back 15 1 year as like a 31-year-old running back. Obviously, like Frank Gore played forever and was useful for a long time. I mean, you can go down like the goats of like playing like Emmitt Smith and Falk and Adrian Peterson and all of these guys. And like I get there's plenty of examples of guys who like flame out after a few years, but like I don't know, sometimes is it okay to just ride a guy into the sunset sometimes if they're as good as Kamara? It's like just be like, you know what, there's gonna be guys on your roster who just like die on your who retire on your team. Is that like it?
I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think it's an underrated thought process that you're not going to change out your whole team.
Situationally, like if you're still winning, like keep those guys. Like you can't always win There's just no way to win and also cycle your guys through so that you have young guys who just continuously like doesn't really work. Like that's just too perfect.
I feel like this is
too perfect of a scenario.
This is the part of the conversation where smug fantasy Twitter comes in and be like,
"Oh, I do that.
Now you're telling me that you're not good at fantasy football at all. Oh.
Tell me you're not good at fantasy without telling me that you're not good at fantasy."
This is like, go fuck yourself.
Like you can't do like that's like in a vacuum. Like sure, yeah, your old receiver running back gets old. You know they're gonna suck next year because they're gonna fall off the cliff. You sell them for young stud running back, and you keep the party going. Like that doesn't happen. Like,
I want to know how many people sold someone like Kamara for like CEH, like changing him out for the new thing.
Yeah, it's just like you be aware of it, like the cliff and like age of running back, but you have to look at your team. Can I contend? That if a player was phenomenal last year, if it's like Dalvin Cook, he was great. Like Alvin Kamara is still good. Like, well, they're probably going to be good this year. It's just like you don't know. Not every cliff is just like an immediate drop. It can be gradual. It can be not when you expect it. Like you just don't know. So,
yeah.
You know, it's situational. Just figure it out. Like, just don't.
And the answer to every question is it depends.
It is. It's boring with this, but it's like that's how it works. It's not. There's no recipe.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes, like I don't know. I think we want to do like an existential dread episode later, so we don't need to really go deep into this. But I just sometimes wonder if like being in more and more leagues of Dynasty in particular just actually makes you worse at playing Dynasty football, because then like,
well, it depends.
Nothing matters anymore. Like, and you're just playing it like it's a stock market and trying to like accumulate value. And
I did that there. I thought I saw Sam Wallace's tweet, who's really great at fantasy in general. He says he plays Dynasty like a soft redraft, which actually is probably the right way to play it.
Yeah, probably, because
it's kind of. I've always said this too before. It's like when you're in the season, it's redraft, like win, like so you're playing a redraft league this year. It's just that you keep your play. Like I mean, so that is like I need to win. I need to compile a team that wins this year. So however that works, whether it's young players or old players, it doesn't really matter if you win that year. So like. Try to win, and then kind of you can figure it out with the pieces. It's nice when you can do it with young players, but if you're acquiring old assets and you're still winning, then that's totally fine.
Yeah, and I don't know. I guess it's kind of weird to just be like so scared of like holding a player too long. It's not always convenient to trade a player that's helping you win, and then they may just like completely shit the bed, and then you're stuck with that player. Maybe you just have Ezekiel Elliott, and then at some point you're going to drop Ezekiel Elliott.
Well, what are you going to do with him now? You're going to trade him for nothing? Because that's what you have to do at Zeke now. Like, you're going to trade him for a late second? That's probably what you'd have to do at this point. Everybody hates him. No one, try to trade him right now. No one's going to give you anything. So you're probably better off sticking it out.
Because if you're trying to peddle off old players, you can guarantee that everybody else has the value of like, well, I don't want to pay top dollar for old players, so you'll probably be selling them at a discount anyway. So what are you really getting?
Yeah, just let them go gently. Let's do one more of these before we get to our.
Do we have to make this a two-parter?
No, we're not. We have a bunch listed here.
Oh, you can rapid fire them. Just say them maybe, and then
Oh yeah, let's go through some of these.
Since we wrote them, and then just pick one you want to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just to give everyone their shine. At Corey_Wallace BR. Traded Cup for DK week 1 of 2021. Woof. From our friend of the pod, Tycoon, Fantasy Tycoon. Traded DK, Lamb, Swift, Joshua Kelly in a second for OBJ and Mixon. That was, I believe he said that was for like a title push, which, I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of value to give away for it. I'm assuming that was 2020.
He said he won, though. So
he said he won, so it's worth it, though. That's worth it. That's not a mistake, Tycoon.
Win.
Yeah.
Then. Doesn't matter.
From our friend Jay's neighbor Mike traded Antonio Brown days before he quit mid-game, took off his shirt, and ran off the field.
Yeah, nothing more to say.
Great.
Yeah,
he traded for. I believe I traded him.
Yeah.
Brown. I'm sorry, Mike. Jorge Martin, Week 7, 2010. This is a bit of a throwback. Sat Darren McFadden after he was inactive for 2 weeks, only for him to go off for 196 total yards and 4 touchdowns.
I mean, that's a rare game.
That's
from McFadden.
classic McFadden.
2010. Love it.
We also have
that's how long the hurt goes. It's like it doesn't go away.
It doesn't
only
go
remember
away.
That's the like
you may not be able to see
legacy
the
of hurt
because they're on the inside.
Yeah, week 7 too. Specific week.
Very specific. That's stayed with him. That's haunted him. Then we have DMIs at DMIC Media on Twitter was all in on Laquan Treadwell. Enough said, I think, really on that one. That rookie fever, baby. Rookie right now, seriously, I have people like you see people out there right now being like, is Malik Willis a top 10 fantasy quarterback? It's like, what in the world are we doing? You've been told over and over again that this is not a great quarterback class, that if these quarterbacks were in last year's class, they'd all go after Mac Jones. What are we doing? What are we doing, Rookie Fever? Then we have from Andrew's best friend, Bill, didn't accept a trade offer of Cooper Kupp for my second round pick in 2018. That's a slow burn one, but it got you in the end, Bill. Oh, yikes. Smash accept on that.
Smash that.
I just want to know what the second round pick ended up actually going to. Because that's the true comparison.
Yeah, probably
Sometimes
would have been a 2019 second round pick, though, so probably nothing. It's probably
Game Butler or something
like that. JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
No, I drafted J-Jaw. There's another one of my mistakes.
That was bad, but it was
He's going to be a red zone threat. He's a big body. This is what happens when you value these big-bodied receivers. He profiles as like a monster. He's the Mike Evans type.
Here's one that I think I skipped over.
You missed this one, yeah.
But I kind of want to talk about this. It's a good one. Justin Hulsey at FF_Hulsey, a Debbie writer for DynastyNerds.com. So, everybody makes mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, these are people who are actually read for their analysis. Traded a 2020, the 2020 111 for DJ Chark, and that pick turned out to be Justin Jefferson.
Oh, so here's where we do get that connection.
Wow, yeah, that one's
so perfect.
That's a rough one, yeah.
That hurt. Yeah, we all make mistakes. It's just, but don't be afraid to make mistakes. Like, do whatever you want when you play. It's just the mistakes are going to happen. Everybody makes them. Every single person who writes about fantasy makes mistakes.
I just made a big trade today that could turn out to be a mistake. I don't know.
That's probably not a mistake. Well, unless Mari Cooper is the best wide receiver one.
I trade. No, which is what is probably going to happen now that I trade. But yeah, trade the 103 Amari Cooper and Kenneth Gainwell as a throw-in for Rondale Moore and the 101.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. Kenny Gainwell's going to be a star, baby.
That'll be what burns me. Amari Cooper's going to be the wide receiver 2 we expect. Gainwell's going to have
like Rondale. I still like Rondale, so I like
me too. I think that's what makes me a little scared is it's so easy to fade a receiver that didn't have that early breakout. But yeah, I mean, Christian Kirk's gone, and there is room for Rondale Moore to step up.
Wait, you got Rondale back?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Oh, no, I like that, actually. I like getting Rondale back in that. I love Rondale Moore.
Yeah.
I believe
second year, still hit.
Yeah. He was a good football player last year, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, he was solid. Let's close this. Sorry,
can I read one thing before we get to? Because I googled Jalen Reagor when we were talking about him, and I got onto his Wikipedia. This will be really quick. I just want to read the last 2 sentences of his Wikipedia.
Oh no!
Please brutal. Go ahead.
In week 12 of the 2021 NFL season, Reagor dropped 2 passes, including a touchdown in the final drive against the New York Giants, and a 13-7 loss.
Oh,
that's
sentence
number 1. Then they finished it up with this Wikipedia page with, in the wild card round against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Rager muffed 2 punts, losing 1, 31-15 loss. That's it.
What have you done for us lately?
That's
brutal.
Goodness. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
A hit job on Jalen Rager on his Wikipedia.
Listen, these Wikipedia
unbelievable
like writers that are going in there and making these pages for people, just like, man, reading Jalen Rager for filth.
Rough.
Wow.
Read for absolute filth.
Jesus Christ.
That's
rough. That came from I don't know what's
you could get those redacted.
Was that written by? I was just thinking of like
who sue for defamation. No, those are real events, so no,
actual
facts.
I was trying to think of like what Philadelphia relevant account would do that, and all I could come up with is Brian Colangelo's burner account probably wrote that. I don't know. That's a deep cut. Let's move on.
That was a while ago, right? That was pre-COVID, right?
Yeah, that was pre-COVID. That was back when before what? Who's that?
BC?
Well, Daryl Morey's there now. Before COVID, yeah, in BC times. Let's move on to our final segment. What's not ruining our life? Although it may have been something that ruined our life at some point. Because we're doing biggest mistakes ever, and we, enjoy a libation. Worst alcohol we've ever had in our life. Andrew, do you have a separate one? Because you guys both came up with the same one immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I came up with it first. So.
But Jay, I'll give it to you first to go with. What's the worst alcoholic drink you've ever had?
I was just telling this story the other night. I was talking about beers, and I was like, Habanero Sculpin, which is Sculpin makes good IPAs, but they made a habanero hot IPA called Habanero Sculpin, and it was honestly one of the worst beers I've ever had. Probably the worst. I like hot things. I like buffalo wings or hot spices on things. This was just basically like bad heat in liquid form. Like it was complete garbage, and I drained. I had 2 sips. I couldn't. Usually I can like push through things. Couldn't even. I was just like nope, and I poured it.
It's so bad because they have a watermelon Sculpin. They're watermelon.
Yeah, that
Sculpin,
one's not
right?
bad. Like I've had the mango or the grapefruit ones. Not
those are good.
Grapefruit's all right.
Regular Sculpin's good. It's a quality bird. Like habanero, I was just like, this is just garbage. Like this is bad. Like,
it's like a fine, dry hopped Cholula.
It was someone just put like cayenne and water. Like that was basically
it's
what
pepper water.
It's like on the mouth. It's really got that kind of like tangy pepper on the back. It's got notes of Frank's Red Hot. It's delicious.
That would have been better. Honestly.
Frank's Red Hot Ale. Frank's Red Hot Lager. That sounds better.
Yeah, that flows
probably would be better. But yeah, that is probably the worst. That's my go-to when it's like I had a bad beer. Like that's Habanero Sculpin. Not good.
Yes, I completely agree with that. But I think my first time, I tentatively tried that. I think I split it with a friend, and we both ended up liking it. As I remember. But then the second time I tried it, which I think was maybe the time that you had also tried it for the first, or I don't know. Maybe that didn't line up. The second time I tried it, it was atrocious. Probably the worst thing I'd had. But a close second for me would be who's the brand that does it? Pumpkin.
Pumpkins.
Pumpkins
also terrible. Yeah.
So Imperial.
That's Southern Tier.
Southern Tier Imperial Pumpkin.
No tea, no shade. Some people like sweeter, but like
this is syrup. Pumpkin, it's straight syrup.
Yeah, when it comes to pumpkin or Oktoberfest, I want something that's more of that like hearty, seasoned taste. I don't want something that tastes like you just have some sort of pumpkin concentrate that you added to the mix. Like I just find that incredibly gross. And then you throw like some sort of sugared rim on that, like as if it needs more sugar. Ugh. Gross. Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate pumpkin too. And Ballast Point is the brewery I do like as a brewery.
Ballast Point.
But Sculpin, Habanero, they make that. not good. But
Not
yeah,
great.
pumpkin. Most pumpkin beers, I'm the same thing. Just the ones that really taste pumpkin-y.
I
The only
can
one I like is
get down with
Shipyards.
the Shipyard pumpkin.
Yeah,
Shipyard,
one is
not
sweet,
a,
and I
not a
don't
fan of
mind
that
it.
one either. I
Really?
needed to.
I don't know.
Honestly,
I'm
I
into
needed
it.
to not taste like pumpkin. I like the pumpkin beers that don't taste like.
Well, it's pumpkin spice. I like the pumpkin spice beers. It's the allspice, the nuts.
It's more of a
not like
latte than a
spicy
beer.
beers.
Yeah, exactly. I like it frothy.
Sure. Just that.
Out of context, cut that. I like it frothy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. What's your drink
what's my
mistake?
least favorite? So let me set the scene for you.
Please.
This was the worst wine I've ever tasted. So me and Liz, my wife Liz,
it's a twist off.
oh, it's really earthy. You really have to meet it in the middle.
Meet it halfway.
It's not very good, is it? Oh God.
Sorry, go
So no, we were up in New Hampshire, and I forget the name of this this winery in New Hampshire. We went to their tasting room because we were up there just on vacation. Like, oh, this will be fun to go to this winery. Literally every wine we tasted there. It was just like they'd bring you little tastes of wine. You know wine tastings.
It was
They give
the
you more than
fruit
one
wine
there?
plate.
but they had a lot.
Schitt's Creek. It was the
It felt like Herbert Linger's fruit wines. This is our ground fruit blend. It's fruit wine. What's not to love? I'm Myra's. Herbert fucker.
Well, we got Succession. We got Schitt's Creek. Let's keep going.
It's great. These are good ones. I'm sure I could do Frasier at some point. No, but like every wine was bad. Literally every wine was bad. Liz and I kept getting them, and they'd be like, "This is this," and they were really into it too. So it'd be like, "This has notes of this and that." It's a lighter, softer on the palate, and we'd drink it and just be like, "Oh, yeah, no good." But nothing compared to. They came up with this red wine. They're like, this is a complex red with notes of green pepper. And we were like, oh, okay. And we tasted it. It was not notes of green pepper. It tasted like liquefied green pepper. It was the most
puree.
disgusting wine I have ever tasted in my life. It was so bad. And it's just like it was in succession of wines that were bad and at best like just okay.
Save the best for last.
And then like this one came out and it was just putrid.
This is our strong closer.
We walked.
This is our flagship wine.
This is our one. Yeah, they were like, we really like to experiment with what we do. So, anyways, New Hampshire's not known for its
They're
wineries.
workshopping there. They're workshopping there.
Yeah, exactly.
Gonna have some mistakes
fine.
before you know.
Do you think they're like
that.
those pretentious Twitter people where they're like, if you don't like our stuff, I don't think you get wine.
I just maybe
How
we're
to
just
tell
not
me
for
that you don't get wine without telling me you don't get wine?
Have you never had wine with green pepper puree in it? You don't even understand. I mean,
Oh my god, that was disgusting.
Next
Do you
level
even
like-
sommelier?
I think I made it like the opinion. Like sometimes it's just like there's plenty of like mediocre wineries out there who just like stay in their lane and are just like, we're gonna make, or breweries too. Like we're just gonna make a solid like basic like wine or beer. We're not gonna try too many fancy things. It's just gonna be.
we
whatever.
make a stout, a lager, an IPA, and a something else, and it's like that's all.
They're not gonna blow your minds,
lane.
but they're solid. You know what I mean? That's that. And there's plenty of wineries who do that, and they're just like, we're not gonna reinvent the wheel. But like, I think I made the analogy of it's like a community theater doing Brecht. Just do anything goes and call it a day. Stop. Brecht is like very intense, like theater specific stylings. It's
Just
very
do Rock
heady
of
and stuff
Ages.
like that. Yeah, exactly. Do a crowd pleaser.
Do American
Don't try to
Idiot.
get too complex. I don't need.
Now we're talking.
I don't need to go.
Spider-Man.
I don't.
Spider-Man.
That's a lot of production.
It's a lot less painful
it.
to go see your. it's a lot less painful to go see your dentist star in a community theater production of Little Shop of Horrors than it is to see them star in Waiting for Godot. It's a hell of a lot more. It's like,
you don't want to see your dentist do Lear.
Yeah, exactly. Let's keep it within our palate. Just like a nice, quick, pithy book musical that doesn't require much range. Don't try to get into the existential stuff. I don't want to see Rhinoceros but by your community theater or another Carl, like absurdist plays in theater and stuff like that. And that's what this winery felt like. It felt like they were a community theater trying to do something way out of their ability level. And it was disgusting. Hence the green pepper wine. And that's the flavor notes that we will end this episode of Fantasy Football Ruined My Life on. That was a segue and a transition to the end. Thanks everyone so much for listening, and thanks of course to my co-hosts Jay and Andrew. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Josh. You can find me on Twitter at JC_DFF. Check out goingfor2.com. I contribute there. And yeah, thanks, Josh. Fun show tonight.
And thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, you can find me at Drusy_music on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can find all my music and band stuff through ghostinthesnow.com.
And I'm at DFFJ Chris on Twitter. Remember to subscribe to our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube page where you can catch this show every Thursday night at 9 p.m. and follow us on Twitter at FFRuinedMyLife. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. 2 weeks to the draft, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.